June has a way of making gardeners feel like the season is already handled. Everything planted in spring is up and growing. The beds look full, the garden looks productive, and there is this quiet temptation to sit back, water what is already in the ground, and just let the season run its course. That temptation will cost you 2 months of harvest at the end of the year. The gardeners who get the most out of their growing season are not the ones who plant the most in spring. They are the ones who understand that June is not the end of planting season. June is the second act. And what you put in the ground right now, today, this week, determines whether your garden is still producing in October and November, or whether it quietly runs out of gas in August while you are still hoping for more. I want to walk you through 5 crops that are absolutely worth planting in June. Not 5 things you could theoretically squeeze in. 5 things that genuinely perform better when started now than at almost any other point in the season. Each one of them has timing logic behind it that makes June the window, and missing that window means either skipping the crop entirely or getting a fraction of what it could have given you. I am growing in Zone 8 in the Mid-Atlantic Southeast, so my season runs ahead of many of yours. But every principle in this video applies universally, because we are all sitting in peak growing season right now, regardless of zone. The warm soil, the long days, the summer heat building, that is the environment all 5 of these crops are going to use. If anything, gardeners in cooler zones may have a slight advantage with a couple of these crops because the heat that challenges me in late summer will be more moderate for you. Let's get into it. Crop number 1 is winter squash, and that includes pumpkins and gourds in the same category. If you want to grow any of these for fall storage, and the storage potential of a well-grown winter squash is one of the most underappreciated things in the home garden, you need to get them in the ground in June. There is no version of this where you wait until July and still get the result you are hoping for. Here is the timing logic. Winter squash varieties take anywhere from 80 to 120 days to reach full maturity, depending on the type. Butternut, spaghetti, kabocha, acorn, most pie pumpkins, they all need a long runway. And you want to harvest them in late summer or early fall, when temperatures have started to cool down, because that timing gives you the best storage conditions. A winter squash harvested in August and moved into a garage that is still 90 degrees is not going to store the way one harvested in late September into a garage that has cooled down to 65 degrees will. The timing of planting now sets up the timing of harvest then, and that harvest timing directly affects how long your squash will keep. The pest pressure question is real with winter squash and worth thinking about carefully before you choose your varieties. Summer squash, planted right after last frost, often gets its harvest in before squash vine borers and squash bugs build to damaging levels. Winter squash, planted in June, does not have that luxury. It is going into the ground when pest populations are already active and climbing. The good news is that vine borer resistance is bred into several excellent varieties. Butternut squash is naturally resistant and is probably the most reliable storage crop in this category for gardeners dealing with pressure. Zucchino rampicante, sometimes called tromboncino squash, is another vine borer resistant option with excellent flavor and remarkable storage quality. If you are in the deep south or any climate with historically heavy insect pressure, building your winter squash selection around vine borer resistant varieties is not just a suggestion. It is the difference between a harvest and a loss. If you are in a cooler climate with lower pest pressure, your options open up considerably. You can grow almost any winter squash variety you like and have a realistic expectation of getting it to maturity. The vine borer issue is largely a warm climate, high humidity problem. Know your climate and choose accordingly. Crop number 2 is sweet potatoes, and if you have not already gotten your slips in the ground, this is genuinely urgent. Sweet potatoes are not a crop with much flexibility on timing. They need 4 to 5 months of warm, consistently humid weather to develop the kind of full-sized roots worth harvesting. In most zones, that means they need to be in the ground by early June at the absolute latest to have enough warm season remaining to perform. Understanding what sweet potatoes actually are changes how you grow them. They are not potatoes, not even close. A potato is a tuber that forms along the roots of a nightshade family plant. and it prefers cool soil and moderate temperatures. A sweet potato is the actual root of a morning glory vine, which tells you everything about what it wants. Hot weather, humidity, warm soil, long days. The conditions that stress most other vegetables are the conditions sweet potatoes thrive in. The more heat and humidity you can give them through the growing season, the better the roots develop. You plant sweet potatoes from slips, not from the root itself. A slip is a rooted cutting taken from a sprouting sweet potato vine. Growing your own slips from a sweet potato takes 6 to 8 weeks of rooting time before they are ready to transplant. If you have not started that process yet, it is too late to grow your own this season. Go to a garden center or big box store and buy pre-rooted slips. They are widely available in June, and planting purchased slips is in no way a compromise. It gets you to the same result with less lead time. Soil mix matters enormously with sweet potatoes, and this is where a lot of gardeners get surprised. Sweet potatoes prefer lean, sandy, well-draining soil that is relatively low in organic matter. If you plant them in rich, heavily amended garden soil full of compost and slow-release fertilizer, you will grow spectacular vines. Long, lush, beautiful vines covering everything in reach, and fairly disappointing roots underneath. The plant puts its energy where the conditions encourage it to go. Rich, nitrogen-heavy soil encourages top growth. Lean, sandy soil with good drainage directs energy into the root. Keep nitrogen levels low. Feed with bone meal and a balanced fertilizer that emphasizes phosphorus and potassium. The roots need those nutrients. They do not need nitrogen pushing vine growth at the expense of everything underground. Container growing is genuinely excellent for sweet potatoes for 2 reasons. First, you control the soil mix completely. Second, harvest becomes dramatically easier. Digging sweet potatoes from a garden bed means working carefully through soil to find roots that can spread 2 feet in every direction from the plant. Tipping a 25-gallon grow bag onto a tarp means the roots come out clean and easy with minimal searching. 5 to 7 slips per 25-gallon bag gives a productive harvest in a manageable space. Crop number 3 is a succession planting of cucumbers and zucchini, and this is the crop that catches the most gardeners off guard in June because everything they planted in spring still looks perfectly healthy. The cucumber plants are vining. The zucchini is producing. Why would you plant more right now? Because in 60 days, those plants are going to be gone. Cucumbers and zucchini are fast crops in every direction. They germinate fast, they grow fast, they produce fast, they also decline fast. A cucumber plant started after last frost is generally on its way out within 2 to 3 months, regardless of how well you care for it. Cucumber beetles, vine borers, pickle worms, squash bugs, the pest pressure of high summer hits these plants hard. Even without pest pressure, the plants themselves have a biological clock that runs out. They are not built for long seasons. They are built for a fast, productive sprint followed by an exit. If you plant nothing now, the gap between when your current cucumbers and zucchini give out and when frost ends the season is going to be empty. Weeks of warm, productive growing weather with nothing in it. Succession planting every 4 to 6 weeks fills that gap continuously. When your spring planting declines, your June planting is just hitting peak production. When that one declines, a later planting picks up. The harvest never stops because you planned for the biology of the plant instead of fighting against it. Direct sowing is an option for successive plantings if your soil is warm and your pest pressure is manageable. Warm soil speeds germination considerably, and June soil temperatures are generally ideal for cucumbers and zucchini to emerge quickly. But if you have a yard with consistent pest problems, and most established gardens do by this point in the season, starting successive plantings indoors gives you an important advantage. Transplants going into the garden are already past the most vulnerable seedling stage. They arrive in the bed larger, stronger, and less susceptible to the slug and vine borer damage that takes out young, direct-sown plants before they even establish. 3 crops in, and already the pattern is clear. Every single one of them comes down to the same principle. The gardeners who are eating well in September and October are the ones making planting decisions in June, not in August when the gaps are already there. right now while there is still time to fill them. Crops 4 and 5 are the ones most gardeners have genuinely never considered starting in June, and they might be the most valuable ones on this entire list. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these three you are already growing and which ones you have never tried. Let me know your zone too. I want to see where everyone is coming from. 2 crops left, and these are the ones that will genuinely change how you think about your garden calendar once you understand the timing behind them. Most gardeners have never considered either of these as June planting candidates. Both of them will still be producing when everything else in the garden is finished. Crop number 4 is fall tomatoes. And yes, that means starting fresh tomato seed right now in June, even if your spring tomatoes are still in full swing and looking perfectly healthy. Here is the reality of tomatoes in a typical growing season. Determinate varieties fruit hard and fast, and then they are done. From transplant to finished crop, most determinates run their full cycle in 90 to 120 days. If you transplanted in April or May, the math already tells you when they are going to give out, long before your frost date. Indeterminate varieties are theoretically capable of producing until frost stops them, but theory and reality part ways fast once the heat and humidity of deep summer arrives. By July and August, most indeterminate tomato plants are fighting disease, dropping blossoms in the heat, and producing a fraction of what they were putting out in June. They look alive, but they are not really performing anymore. The solution is not nursing struggling plants through a miserable August. The solution is starting fresh seed indoors right now in June, so you have clean, disease-free transplants ready to go into the ground around the 1st of August. Those plants go in healthy, untouched by the pest and disease pressure that has been accumulating on your spring crop all season, and they hit their productive stride right as temperatures start to moderate in September and October, which is actually some of the best tomato growing weather of the entire year. Variety selection is everything for a fall tomato crop. You need early maturing varieties. Days to maturity of 65 or fewer is your target. If you can find varieties in the 50s or high 40s, those are even better because every day of margin matters when you are working toward a frost deadline from the other direction. Determinate varieties are strongly preferred for fall crops because they ripen their fruit in a concentrated window rather than slowly over a long season that may not fully arrive before cold ends things. Disease resistance matters more for a fall planting than almost any other characteristic, because late summer soil carries accumulated pathogen pressure from the entire season. And even if your fall crop does not ripen everything on the vine before frost arrives, that is not the end of the harvest. When the first frost advisory comes, go out and pull every mature green tomato from the plant. Lay them out in a cool garage or basement, and they will ripen progressively over the following weeks and months. A green tomato pulled in early November in good condition will ripen on its own through November and December given the right storage temperature. It is one of the most satisfying extensions of the season available to any gardener willing to plan for it. Crop number 5 is fall onions. And this one surprises almost every gardener who has not tried it, because onions carry such a strong association with spring planting and summer harvest that growing them off-season genuinely does not occur to most people. Onions are cold tolerant to a degree that most gardeners have never tested. They can survive temperatures well below freezing when established. A fall onion crop started from seed in June will be ready for transplanting outdoors in August and will reach harvest maturity somewhere between October and late November, depending on your variety and your zone. That puts fresh, homegrown onions on your table deep into fall, and onions store for months after harvest, which means a successful fall crop feeds you well into winter and beyond. The key to fall onion success is variety selection around day length. Onions bulb in response to the length of daylight, not temperature. Summer onions bulb during the longest days of the year and require varieties matched to your latitude. Fall onions mature when day length is shorter and require short-day varieties specifically bred to bulb under those conditions. Plant a long-day variety for a fall crop, and it will grow beautiful green tops and produce almost nothing underground. Get the variety selection right, and the crop takes care of itself. Start them indoors now. Onion seed takes time. 8 to 10 weeks from seed to transplant-ready seedling is typical. Starting in June puts transplants ready for the garden right around August, which is exactly the window you need for a fall harvest timeline to work. 5 crops, 2 planting windows still open. 1 season that is far from over. The gardeners eating well in November started planting in June. That is the only difference between a garden that quits on you in August and one that carries you all the way through fall. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 you are committing to this June. I read every single one.